ziceam în felul următor, că avem un interviu în exclusivitate. Doamna Rebekah Koffler se numește, dumnea ei, o vedeți în spatele meu, este autoarea unei cărți foarte interesante, Putin's PlayBook, manualul lui Putin, planul statelor secret al Rusiei de a învinge Statele Unite. Această doamnă a scris această carte despre planul secret al lui Putin, studiind, după ce a studiat, ea este din s-a născut în Uniunea Sovietică, a plecat în Statele Unite, iar acolo a devenit ofițer de intelligence pentru US Defense Intelligence Agency și era ofițer de informații fix pe zona de Rusia și Ucraina. Deci a bazat toată analiza pe care o vedeți imediat, vorbește inclusiv despre mesajele actuale, despre Polonia, România, dacă reprezintă Putin în momentul de față o amenințare directă pentru noi, dar și planul lor. Și zicea dumneaei, vă repet, înainte aceste declarații pe care v-am dat-o în această seară, că acea amenințare existențială de care vorbește Kremlinul se poate referi și la sancțiunile economice, inclusiv și la trimiterea de armament. Haideți să vedem acest pasaj din interviu, e doar un prim pasaj, vom mai da mâine seară un alt pasaj foarte interesant și revenim cu noi informații imediat după.
This is Antena 3, breaking news.
First of all, hello Rebekah, and thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I'll start with the most pressing matter at this point. On Monday, President Zelensky spoke in the Romanian parliament, and he said that Ukraine is not the only target for Russia, that all the countries around could be next targets for Russia. And also, a few days ago, Poland's prime minister said that if Putin wins in Ukraine, then after Kiev will come Warsaw, maybe Bucharest, or maybe even Berlin, he said. Do you think that is true, that Ukraine is just a stepping stone for Putin, that he has another plan, a bigger plan?
So I disagree with President Zelensky's statement. No, Romania is not part of the plan, and neither is Poland. But Putin does have a bigger plan. In that respect, President Zelensky is correct. Here's what Putin's plan is. Russian President Putin has decided that he needs to reconstitute what the Russians call the strategic security perimeter or strategic buffer and reintegrate post-Soviet space back under Russian control. Why? It is a security concern. The distance between NATO forces and St. Petersburg, which is the largest city in Russia, has reduced back from the Cold War, when it was 1,000 miles, to 100 miles today. This is a shorter distance than between Washington and New York. And so this is the ultimate reason for this war. This is why he drew the line.
You studied Russia, you studied Ukraine because you were an intelligence officer at USA Defense Intelligence Agency, and you also wrote that book we see on screen right now, Putin's Playbook, Russia's Plan to Defeat America. What is Putin's plan? And this war with Ukraine, what's the role of this war in this mega plan that you say that he has made many years ago? So it's not a new plan. It's he's working on it since many years ago.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. So he has been working on it ever since he became the president of Russia. You know, back in 2000, and he was reelected 4 times at this point. So the first objective, the first strategic goal of his plan is to reverse the outcome of the Cold War and to reverse the collapse of the Soviet Union that took place in 1991. He would like to, again, reintegrate post-Soviet states, Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, the stance back under Moscow's control into a supranational kind of alliance, not unlike the European Union or NATO. Russia already has an organization that is stood up as a counterweight to NATO. It is called CSTO, Collective Security Treaty Organization, right? So he wants to give it teeth. He wants to make it more powerful, and he wants Russia to be the dominant power in this other alliance that even today they call the Union. The full name is the Eurasian Economic Union. We are seeing these steps to actually that Russia has taken to create that union. So that is the plan. Putin doesn't have the plan to conquer the world. Putin is adhering to the concept of realpolitik. So realpolitik is the balance of power. Each powerful state, or the great powers, the Russians call it, держава, the United States, Russia, China, they plan on expansion because they know that the more territory, the more control you have, the more difficult for other, players, big players, to defeat you. So that's what Putin is planning to do. The reason I called my book To Defeat America is not because Putin is out there planning to put boots on the ground in America, to actually launch an attack, not in America, not on NATO, but Putin does have a plan to, if the United States or NATO intervene in his plan to resubjugate Ukraine or any other former Soviet state, then there's a plan to escalate the conflict all the way to nuclear.
You're saying that he doesn't want a hot war, so we had a cold war, not a hot war with NATO and the USA right now. But if NATO and USA intervene in this war, he has a contingency plan, even a nuclear plan. Do you think in in Putin's mindset that President Biden's statement that, my God, we can't have this person in power anymore, that he shouldn't be in power anymore, could Putin have seen that as a threat, as a direct threat, that we are going to remove you from power? And that's why, I don't know, he took out the missiles and put another row of missiles, the avant-garde missiles, on the border with Ukraine, on the western border with Ukraine.
You are 100% correct. Yes, Putin exactly interpreted President Joe Biden's words, "This man can no longer remain in power," as a direct threat of regime change. But these are not the only words or actions that Putin is interpreting as what is called existential threat. Remember when Christiane Amanpour of CNN interviewed the Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, she was asking him whether Russia would use nuclear weapons, and Peskov never really ruled it out, but he specified that the Russian military doctrine envisions the employment of nuclear weapons in the event that Russia is threatened with existential threat. What is existential threat? Is regime change an existential threat? Yes. Are the devastating effects of the Western sanctions on Russia? Yes, that's how the Russians interpreting it. Shortly after, about 2 days after President Joe Biden's words indicating regime change, Sergei Lavrov, who's a foreign minister, right? He made a statement that the ultimate goal of the U.S. and Western sanctions is to annihilate Russia, to strangle it economically. The Russians do not believe that the goal of the sanctions is to change Putin's behavior, especially when President Biden himself admitted that sanctions were never going to deter. That was not their intent. Well, why would the Russians then believe that they intended to change Putin's behavior in Ukraine? So what you have right now is a complete misunderstanding, either with some aspect of intentionality on both sides to not recognize what is the reason why each side is fighting. And Ukraine, unfortunately, is in the middle. The Russians don't view this as a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, or even their war on Ukraine. They view it as a proxy war between the United States and NATO and Russia. And in fact, they have invoked the concept of total war. So again, a few days earlier, the I don't remember which one. I think it could have been Lavrov, but it's one of the Kremlin, official spokespeople, part of the Russian government, rather, said that Russia has now entered the phase of the total war. What does it mean? That means Russia perceives the Western actions as an existential threat. Okay, and this is exactly the requirement in the Russian doctrine that is now being met as we speak, allowing Putin in his mind and then the Russian government's mindset to use nuclear weapons to de-escalate and end this conflict that they believe is presenting mortal threat to them.